items 5A, regular council meeting minutes, and item 5B, committee of the whole meeting minutes. I move that council consent to approve those two agenda items without debate. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, so just before we get going with the rest of the agenda, we do have 3 proclamations this evening I'd like to read into the record. It gives me great pleasure to proclaim 2019 Built Green Day on June the 5th, 2019. Whereas the City of Beaumont is committed to sustainable growth and responsible stewardship of our natural environment, and whereas Built Green Canada is a national organization that advocates for sustainable environmental practices in the residential building sector, and whereas Built Green Canada delivers programs to assist builders in building more sustainably using the latest technologies to create healthier, more efficient, and durable homes. Now, therefore, I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, June 5th, 2019 as Built Green Day in the City of Beaumont, dated this 24th day of May, 2019. The second proclamation we have today is Beaumont Pride Week from June 7th to 16th, 2019. Whereas on June 7th to 16th, Beaumont celebrates the diversity that strengthens our community, including individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer, two-spirited, and all other sexual orientations and gender identities. And whereas the intent of Pride Week is to encourage Beaumont to be a safe and welcoming place for all people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, to attend school, to work, to raise a family, to start a business, and to live. And whereas Beaumont Pride promises to provide hope and support for our employees, our youth, and other community members who experience bullying and harassment based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. And whereas the Rainbow Pride flag is raised in honor on our LGBTQ2+ employees and community members. Now, therefore, I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim June 7th to 16th, 2019 as Pride Week, dated this 28th day of May, 2019. And our third and final proclamation of the evening, 2019 Seniors Week, June 3rd to 9th, 2019. Whereas seniors make a difference in our community from supporting family and friends to volunteering, and whereas the value seniors bring to a community is priceless as they hold our history, retain valuable memories, share stories of where we come from, and experiences that help us as we look to the future. And whereas this year marks the 32nd anniversary of Seniors Week in Alberta to honor the enormous contributions of seniors in the City of Beaumont, as well as across the province. Now, therefore, I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim the week of June 3rd to 9th, 2019 as Senior Week in the City of Beaumont, dated the 7th day of May, 2019. Thank you very much. All right, so brings us to item 4, the open forum. We have no money registered for the open forum. We have no public hearings. We have no registered presentations, which brings us to item A, corporate sponsorship policy approval. Mr. Rod Mackin.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So before you tonight, I would like to bring forward the corporate sponsorship naming rights and advertising policy. Back on April 16th, I had presented to the Committee of the Whole the draft corporate sponsorship naming rights and advertising policy. And at that time, a number of comments and feedback were taken from Council, and there were some additional follow-up items as well that were required in regards to this policy. Those included conducting the external legal review of the policy, and that has now been completed. Specific feedback and language has been built into this new policy, especially in the sponsorship naming rights and advertising criteria section. We've also amalgamated the definitions. There was a definition number 12, which was sponsorship and partnership. And I know Councillor Barnhart had highlighted this at that meeting. We've amalgamated it into one single definition for clarity, and that is definition number 4, corporate sponsorship partnership. We've also updated the delegation of authority based upon our discussion to a level that was $25,000 per annum or less for the Director of Economic Development or the individual responsible in that area. And the CAO, anything under $75,000 per annum, and then anything over $75,000 per annum will come to Council for approval. And the additional clause was added that in instances where there is a naming right for an asset that already has an individual's name attached, a communications plan will be developed and engage council and the community in advance, so that can be taken into account. I believe Brent Brudies, who was there that evening, had provided some good examples of how well a communications plan can work and how it cannot work if it is neglected. So I believe that provided some clarification for council. In regards to the specific legal insight that we got during our review, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the items. So specifically, it's making sure that we refer to the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards. That is a nationally recognized code of advertising standards that's maintained that we want to make sure that we always follow. So additional bullets were also stated that advertising shall not promote any illegal product, service, or activity. This was a way of being able to group a number of those itemized instances that were included in the previous draft. We also added the content that advertising shall not contain content that is obscene, offensive, or is likely to be disturbing. And then also based upon our legal review, we built in an appeal process so that if somebody feels that their advertisement has been wrongfully declined or not put forward, it can be appealed to the CAO directly. So there's a step in that process if it is challenged. And finally, we added a bullet in regards to the sponsorship, naming rights, and advertising to minors and children to recognize that many of the city's advertising opportunities will be seen and received by minors, and the city has the discretion to reject that content of any sponsorship, naming rights, or advertising which is not appropriate for all ages. And especially in light of there's been some instances publicly over the last few years, we wanted to make sure that that was clearly laid out as well, and our legal had provided that wording for us. The one other thing I wanted to just bring to council's attention is because this field is always evolving, and it's something that we're going to be taking a much more active role in obviously some naming rights we're working on right now, is this policy we're proposing to have come back on an annual basis right now, so that as we have any modifications, we will review it to make sure that updates are made and we keep it current to standard practice as well as best practice.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from members of council for Mr. Mackin? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Didn't know my finger was that quick on the button there. Thank you very much for making the changes that you made. And it's much clearer now to me. What occurred to me when I was reading this, and then I think I'll point to page, under responsibilities, I got to find the right page. And it talks about third party must abide by all of these things.
Yes.
There it is. Okay. Yeah, third-party advertising relationships. What occurred to me, and it's really just a question, I don't have any concerns with what's here, is in the event that the city of Beaumont is giving a grant to another organization, do we have any way of ensuring that our name is attached with an organization that's following these same guidelines? Is that any way covered by that?
It's not explicitly.
This is about us having the events, I understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
so through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, this speaks directly to us having advertising sold for city assets. If there's another organization, this does not apply to them directly. So typically, from experience, they would come to us and we would want to see what their agreement is or where that advertising would be. And internally, we would want to make sure that it's still abided by that Canadian Council of Advertising Standards.
I was just wondering if we needed anything in our grant policy or anything like that that pertains to, it might just be worth checking, because if we're going to follow this and then our name is associated with another organization and they're not following it, people don't necessarily know the difference between a grant versus an event the city has put on. So I think it's worth just double checking.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship to Mr. Mackin. Just reading through the bylaw, a quick question. There's a section that I think either there's a formatting error that alters the sense of the sentence, or I just don't understand it, which is also definitely a possibility. Could you crank us forward, please, Shalane, to page 17 under the section naming rights? And yes, there. The third bullet. Proceeds received by the city for the naming rights agreement are to be used for, and then there's a colon, and then there's a sub list indented. And the first two appear to make sense, but the third one looks to me like it's a completely separate clause and should not be indented. But it's possible I'm not reading it correctly. The cost and impact of changing existing signage and marketing materials, rebuilding community recognition, updating records, and the city's corporate values and public image must be considered before a property is renamed. Is that part of proceeds received by the city?
If we are renaming an existing, so let's say there was XYZ company named asset and got a new sponsor and that was getting renamed, some of the proceeds from that sponsorship could go to rebranding that facility and putting a new sign up, is how the cost and impact of changing existing signage and marketing materials associated with that asset.
Okay, so that is a subclause of the proceeds
Yes.
received by the
Yes.
city clause. Okay,
So
then,
we can apply the funding we receive for that to actually rebrand the asset.
okay, I just didn't read it as that, but
Okay, no, and
thank you.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk?
Yeah, through your worship to the presenter, thank you for so thoroughly incorporating the comments that we had last time. I think that was itemized well. Just a couple of comments, I guess. First one is going to be, I really appreciate the commitment to the annual review. I think that's important. We've put a lot of weight and effort into this piece and getting it to this point. So I think as we go and use it, we're going to learn a whole bunch. And I think the annual review is good. And then also the page 14, this policy is intended to be a living document, meaning that over time this policy will be further strengthened. I think that's a really important piece to put in here as well. Just, that commitment to continuous improvement in what we're doing is alive in this document. And I think that's a good piece moving forward. So just a couple of comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor, seeing no further requests to speak, is there a member of council prepared to move the approval of the corporate sponsorship naming rights and advertising policy as presented? Councillor Stout,
So moved, Your Worship.
discussion on the motion? Sorry, gotta catch up. Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rankin. Good job. Which brings us to item 9A, request for decision for bylaw 957-19, records management bylaw, first reading. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to members of council. Bylaw 957-19 Records Management Bylaw is a new bylaw that authorizes the development of a new records management program. The General Manager of Corporate Services or delegate will be responsible for the creation of the records management program, establishing directives and standards and guidelines. The bylaw contributes to the efficiency of the city's operations by providing systematic control of information and resources. The Records Management Bylaw allows administration the flexibility to update retention of records mandated by provincial or federal law or industry compliance standards. This bylaw will allow administration to regulate the records management practices for the city. At this time, administration is recommending that council give first reading to bylaw 957-19 Records Management Bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Danlock.
So move, Your Worship. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion or questions for admin? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Am I allowed to? I can't make amendments in first reading, can I?
No, but
Okay.
if
All right, I'll ask the question
if we
first.
discuss going to second or third reading.
Okay,
fairly
I'll ask the
straightforward.
question
We can
first and get the clarity on it then, please, if I may.
Sure.
Section, who am I asking? Through Your Worship to Ms. Winter. Section 3.0, Records Management Programs, Clause 3.3. Destruction of the original minutes and bylaws of the City of Beaumont may occur once these records have been converted to electronic format. Do I understand from that then that the intent is to convert everything into a standard electronic format, and once that has been achieved, that other formats will be destroyed, removed? Is that correct? Is that may actually the use of the word may there, is that really actually a shall?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout, that yes, you are reading that correctly.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Sure.
In that case, once we have begun that process, destroyed old records, and we have the electronic format in the what do we call it? The document, the records management. Then what happens if there is a catastrophic event to our electronic storage? And I can think of any numbers of alternatives. The electronic storage is destroyed by events beyond our control.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout, would actually have backups of those. So the electronic documents would be stored in two different places as well as backed up nightly.
Right. That was what I was hoping you would tell me. Thank you.
Sure, keep
Can I
going.
just follow this thought? Does the bylaw need to include that? And this is an area where I do have some professional experience. Do we need to include the possibility of a disaster recovery strategy or plan to enable us to do what you just described in the event of a catastrophic failure? And do we, in fact, how certain are we that such a plan would work if we ever had to implement it? Should we, in fact, have a test, a simulation of a catastrophic failure and a recovery of all our data periodically? A lot of corporations, and I know this because I've worked on them. EPCOR, for instance, do yearly have a pretend collapse of their entire database, and then because they'd be out of business within the week if their database was not available. Should we actually explicitly include the requirement for backup recovery and a backup recovery test?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout, we actually currently do have an IT system procedures that we already have that we follow. And I can say for certain we have had to go under circumstances where we've had to go and get these backup files from other records that have been destroyed or lost or anything like that. And the system, I can assure you, does work.
So we're completely confident that we can recover it in the event of a catastrophic failure.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout. I'm for certain within reason as long as we can get the information back. It's held off-site. So if something happens to our building and our servers, we do have off-site servers.
Thank you. You can. For any catastrophe, I can create a catastrophe that we can't recover from. But there's a question of what's reasonable. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Councillor Van Newkirk?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through yourself to, I guess, Councillor Stout and administration. Question for administration. The avenue of questioning that Councillor Stout was just providing in the IT systems policy, is there a disaster recovery section in there? Or do we know? Where I'm going for is that perhaps if that's in there, then there's absolutely no reason to have it in here. If the IT policy already has a disaster recovery portion to it, then there would be no reason to include it in here. So thank you.
CEO?
That's a very good question. My assumption is it's in there, but I'm going to double check. And you're
Yeah.
right. And going back to Ms. Winter's response, we have had to implement those procedures. But again, I've physically read it myself, but I will go back and look.
Yeah, because I think that alleviates those concerns, right? And probably the correct spot for that would be in the IT type policy. And then the records keeping policy would, maybe not require an amendment then if it was already existing over there. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
And I sort of agree with you. It's because this really is, reading this bylaw in its simplicity, is just about how long we keep and maintain records for. So if we do have that concern, that policy is probably the better place to have that discussion anyway. So. Any further discussion on first reading? Call the vote. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Just a quick question for members of council. Being that this is a fairly straightforward, simple bylaw, is there appetite to move right through second and third reading? Because this is largely administrative, complying with legislation. We got the time tonight to discuss it in detail if we want to.
Personally, I'm okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
the question, when you do that before you mention it, so yeah.
Yeah, so is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Daniluk,
So moved, your worship, thank you.
discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Now we need a unanimous motion by council. I need a unanimous, struggling tonight. We need to vote unanimously in favor of proceeding to third reading, so I move that we move third reading in the next sitting, or in this sitting. All in favor, discussion on the motion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Do I have a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. All in discussion on the motion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, which brings us to item number 10, councillor inquiries and statements. Is there any member of council wishing to make a statement this evening? Is there any member of council wishing to ask a few questions of admin? Councillor Van Newkirk.
No, thank you, Your Worship. Through to administration, just a comment regarding the thank you for your patience for street sweeping. I thought that was a really nice touch on the billboard coming through town. Just an extra piece of communication for folks, and we always know every year that you got to start somewhere and you got to end somewhere, and we try to rotate, and someone's always going to be first and someone's going to be last in the street sweeping. I thought it was a nice touch for that, so kudos for that. That's all for me. Thank you.
Any further questions or updates from members of council? Oh, Councillor Hendricks.
Worship, thank you. And to the event, just
Thank
on
you.
the street sweeping issue and north of 510 50th Street shoulders, will they be getting a regular look at service level, something, just to sort of maintain the gravel package that seems to build up on those shoulders? I see the bicyclists are riding the line right now, trying to stay off the gravel. So. Anything 510 north of 50th Street, shoulders. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, seeing nobody else. Just wanted to give a council brief update on some of my activities in the last month or last week. I actually got to do two significant things. I got to attend. I'll get them on the roll. I got to do two significant things. I got to attend the throw-in speech with our MLA Brad Rutherford. Mr. Mackin, our Director of Economic Development, also accompanied me on that excursion. It was a great day to be sitting in the gallery and watching our new government give a speech from the throne, and there's a tremendous amount of history involved in that, and it was something to see. It was also great because I got to meet 7 of our ministers: the Minister of Infrastructure, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Minister of Economic Development, Minister of Seniors, Minister of Housing. So it was a great afternoon, and I just wanted to let council know that we started to make those contacts again and are moving forward. And the next one next exciting piece that's coming is the EMRV, the task force for the municipal regional servicing plan, the MRSP, hit some major milestones at its meeting on Friday. They're currently looking at 3 areas in terms of fire services, which is now broken down into fire services and emergency management, wastewater, and solid waste. And so there's going to be a number of initiatives coming forward and some updates from council in the next month to 6 months about getting some feedback as it hits the MRB table going forward. But they finally scoped it. They've hit some milestones, and so they know what we're looking at, and it's going to be quite interesting work going forward. And I look forward to updating council as that work continues. And Councillor Daniluk, sorry, I cut you off. I think you had something.
Oh. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question I was going to ask administration before tonight's meeting. I forgot to post it before tonight. Is it possible for the next council meeting? I know June's quite busy for us, but you can find time on the agenda to give us an update on our transit numbers, perhaps year to date or from the first quarter possibly, as to how we're doing with transit revenues and numbers, please? That'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other statements or inquiries from council, we'll move on to CAO's update.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be brief, but we're over, so somebody else is going to not make. First of all, welcome back, Councillor Barnhart. I know you're not supposed to be here, so shame on you, but thank you for coming back. Quick note, Sports and Rec and Culture Committee, we went to the community for applicants, and to date we've only received 3. So we're going to repost and bump up the advertising a little bit, but urge anybody in the community that wants to get involved in that committee to submit their name. Our census as of today is 82% complete. The door-to-door, the first round of door knocking ends on May 31st, and then we do what we call a cleanup between June 1st and June 5th. So we're pretty confident we'll get the numbers that we're looking for. The City of Beaumont is going to host some regional training. The Edmonton Metro Region Board is putting on some training for their growth board and for the REF process, the approval process, and that'll be on June 27th at the CCBCC from 2 o'clock till 3:30. Ask council to have a look at your schedule on your app and update it, please. And we will unveil this past and present book. It's got pictures and names of past councils, and we will have a copy of it for the foyer. We're updating some of the pictures. There's some of the retakes that are being done for the current council, and once that's done, we'll make multiple copies. But in the interim, please have a look at this. It's kind of cool. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So fairly light, quick agenda this evening. Councillor Danlick, you got one more thing you want to say?
Yes, actually, I apologize. Thank you. I apologize. I mentioned it sooner. I know this coming Tuesday, June 4th, I've been asked to attend the Emerald Awards on behalf of the council. Craven Shakes is up for a business award, so I'm going to represent council in case they win and wish them well in their being nominated at that meeting. But I understand we have a special council meeting on June 4th to discuss some things on our mind, that sort of thing. I'll be not available, and I believe colleague Councilor McCall will be unavailable as well. And I was expecting Councilor Barnhart not to be available, but she's here this evening, so pleasant surprise. But I'm wondering if the 2 of us gone, possibly 3, if we want to keep the meeting in place for the 4th, or Bonnie, if you want to discuss perhaps postponing to another night.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, that might be worth a quick discussion. Because that meeting is geared around council sitting in a room chatting about strategic initiatives and priorities. So if we're short to possibly 3, depending on how Councilor Barnett's feeling, it's not, we're going to have to repeat the discussion because we're missing half of council. So is there appetite for council to delay that meeting? Like, find a different night in the month of June to do it. Delay's okay? Delay's okay? I still want to have this meeting, so I'll just send out a doodle poll and we'll pick a date and we'll.
Excuse me, my June is a nightmare, so I appreciate you trying to find it. I'm sorry, if I can't make it, but I think it's an important meeting that we've pushed hard to get, and so let's keep it like that. I appreciate you trying.
Yeah. I'm okay with
wait to any particular date, but I'd definitely like to have a June meeting on this.
Okay, I will work with Ms. Narad, and we'll get a doodle poll out and see if we can't find a date where we can get at least 6 of us sitting in the room. Ms. Winter, how do we need to cancel that meeting? Or will you just take care of it for us?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take care of it for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further agenda items, I guess that means we're currently adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks,